Hey guys, it's Horror Free for All, better known as Goosebumps Completionist, and welcome back to Goosejunkies. Tonight for episode 39, we have decided to finally, and I mean finally, face off two horror movies in the family slash kids horror subgenre, and we're going to be looking at Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween, and we're going to be facing it off against Netflix originals The Curse of Bridge Hollow. As usual, I'm joined tonight by two great panelists, the Ultimate Goosebumps Man and the Horrorlander. How are you guys doing tonight?
Yo, 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 people and patrons of the night. Hope you had a great Halloween. Hope it was a festive October. Now November begins. Hope none of you guys cut your tongues on razor blades put inside of your Reese's cups. And hope you guys got a lot of good candy. And I'm also excited for this because this is long awaited. I know you guys have been looking forward to this, and so have we. We've been waiting for a good opportunity to bring this up. So excited to talk about it tonight.
Absolutely. Can't wait myself, man. I've been dying to talk about these. How about you, Micah?
Doing great. Had a really fun Halloween, and now I'm excited to talk about these movies. Very fun getting to rewatch Goosebumps 2 because I've not seen it since the theaters. So it was definitely a nice, refreshing rewatch to get back into that and kind of appreciate it a lot more than I did back when I first saw it. So,
Been 7 years, so 7 years to stew on things, right? To
mhm.
come back to it with a fresh set of eyes, right? You got rid of the recency bias, which is good. I think a lot of people out there are probably still holding on to some of that. And I can probably say the same with a few movies out there in recent time. But I guess this will be a good place to start with Goosebumps too. So I know we're no strangers to the Goosebumps community, and we're also no strangers to the opinions about Goosebumps 2 out there. I mean, there's wild different opinions about this movie out there from people saying that it's a terrible movie, it's a shameless rehash, cash grab from the first movie from 2015. I've seen people say that it's actually better than 2015's movie, or people say that it's actually an underrated, like, top goat of kids horror when it comes to movies. So it goes all over the spectrum, but I definitely see the most popular thing out there is probably the two on the former. People saying that, oh, this is a bad movie or this is a shameless rehash cash grab movie. And I think that we're here as a trio on this podcast to tell you that we believe that to be absolutely false. And there's a lot of reasons why I think play into this popular opinion that have snowballed and kind of gained traction out there in the community. We've touched on this even before we got on the podcast, guys, where, there was a planned Goosebumps Horrorland movie. That was the initial pitch, and fans were teased that. And then, of course, that never happened. The movie got into a bunch of rewrites. I think Rob Letterman took himself off the project. People knew that Jack Black didn't really want to come back for the second movie, but he was going to be in it, and they didn't know in what capacity. And after what they got, I think that kind of soured their opinion on it because, honestly, this movie took a completely different approach in how to handle its material than 2015 did. So I feel like there was some alienation going on with the audience. And I do feel that maybe, just maybe out there, Goosebumps 2015 was either the introduction to the series or the franchise for a lot of people out there, and that was their expectation. So when their expectation wasn't met with this follow-up movie, it just looked inferior and terrible. So it's hyper conflated because of that lack of comparison there. So I feel like there's a bunch of different factors playing into it, but that doesn't take aside that we are just trying to objectively look at the material itself and just speak on it and how we feel. So, whoever wants to take over Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween's movie or whatever, we can start from there.
Micah, it's been 7 years since you watched this movie. You've been long waiting to talk about it because now you're the honored one. You go ahead.
All right. So, for a basic plot synopsis of Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween, we center around these two kids named Sunny and Sam who are just best friends. Sam is staying over at Sunny's house for a few days while his dad goes off on some trip. And it's coming around Halloween in this town called Wardenclyffe, New York. And Very small town. It seems like it's very into Halloween in a lot of ways. They have this neighbor named Mr. Chu, who is played by Ken Jeong, one of the only tolerable Ken Jeong roles I've seen. And he is this guy who is very into Halloween. He decorates his house. He has this like massive balloon spider on his roof. He has all these like mummies and zombies and stuff. Really extravagant. Those are the kind of people who are always the most fun in your neighborhood to have on Halloween season. And basically these two guys run this company this little small business called the Junk Bros, where they go in and they go to old houses or things like that and gather up all this junk to try and get paid or clear stuff out. And we also meet their sister, her name is Sarah. She's 17 and she is trying to apply for college and is having some writer's block trying to figure out what to write for her college essay, which is centered around fear. And eventually Sonny and Sam get this call to go to this old abandoned house. And when they go there, as they're going inside and messing around with a few things, they discover a trunk hidden behind the fireplace. And upon opening it, they find an old, dusty, discarded book called Haunted Halloween. And upon unlocking it, nothing seems to happen at first. They just think it's kind of just this old book that's not really worth anything. And then they find that Slappy has appeared in that trunk. And they decide to bring him home because they think, oh, cool little discovery. And basically on the way home, they discover that Slappy may or may not be alive. And after they learn that he wants to be a part of their family and become a brother to them. And at first he's very nice. He's very helpful to them, trying to earn their trust. And eventually he ends up turning on them after a scenario where he ends up overhearing Sarah talking about her boyfriend cheating on her at a party. He ends up going and breaking the dude's neck or leg or something like that. And basically that's Sonny and Sam and them all turn on him. And then he decides to get his revenge by bringing Halloween to life and have his own family that way. And then mass chaos ensues around the town, and it's up to the three of them to try and figure out how to stop it. And it's a very fun movie. Like after rewatching it again, I remember not liking it as much when I was a kid just because I kind of was one of that people who had the preconceived notion of it not being Horrorland, not really being super connected to the first movie. So I kind of had that negative stigma going in back when I was younger. Still excited for it, but still having those drawbacks. But rewatching it as an adult who has looked at the 2015 movie with fresh eyes and kind of found it very lackluster, I think that this movie just is such a good job at capturing the idea of Goosebumps and it just captures the essence of a story so well. And it feels like it could have been a story that you would have seen in the original 62. And I think it's a very fun, slappy story. But I would argue, like after the 90s show adaptation, like maybe even better than the 90s show, this is one of the best slappy adaptations we will ever see in live action, I feel like. And they did everything so perfectly with his character. They're kind of pulling from different aspects of different books. And they just work so well with this version. We got nice little homages to like Night of the Living Dummy 2's episode where he's like POV walking through the halls and going to fix Sonny's project, or he's like staring at Sarah while she sleeps, which is just such a creepy image there. You got, of course, the scene of him confronting Sarah's boyfriend in the school auditorium. That is like that's one of my favorite slappy moments in the entire Goosebumps franchise. I think this is such a good encapsulation of his character and how he, the trouble he causes. I will say though, the one like negative I have on Slappy, there are some shots where he is CGI, and good God, does that CGI look abysmal. There are some really bad CGI shots with him that so obviously stand out, and it just feels very out of place because it'll transition from the CGI to the practical dummy, and it's so jarring when you can tell. It's like in Dummy 3's episode where you go from the actual dummy to the kid in the costume. It's that level of like, I don't know. It's nothing like a huge negative or anything like that, but it's something that's very noticeable. I think that the whole idea of, again, Slappy bringing Halloween to life is really fun. I love all the little set pieces and the encounters with different like living Halloween decorations. I think there's just a lot of fun ideas they explore with that. And like, I like Sonny and Sam as characters as well. I think they're a very fun duo. They really feel like protagonists of a Goosebumps book. I really appreciate that because, again, it seems like the writers actually did their homework in this movie and actually wanted to make it feel like a Goosebumps book. And they actually show a lot of reverence to the source material. much more than in 2015, where it's nothing but just cameos and pointing out different Goosebumps monsters. And I just really appreciate that they did that, because it feels more like an authentic Goosebumps movie. And I think there's some good humor in there. It always cracks me up. Like, I got a really good laugh because I forgot about this. When we see the Junk Bros poster and it says "Let us grab your junk" is like a tagline. It's like it's a cringy joke and it's stupid, but it caught me so off guard and made me laugh way harder than it probably should have. And it's just, I don't know. It's just those little things like that where it's like, yeah, that's something kids would make up, probably not even realizing what it was, but. And I just think that's like, it very encapsulates what those like early teen kind of kids would be like. Because I can guarantee you, me and my friends were probably doing something similar when we were that age. But like, and there's just a lot of other fun interactions. I like the mom a lot. I think she's very fun. I can't remember the name of the actress, but I know she played the mom in The Goldbergs, which is one of I think, a very underrated sitcom. I think she's very funny in that show. She's very funny here. I think, again, as mentioned, Ken Jeong. Usually he is very annoying in most of his movies. No offense to him as a person, but like his sense of humor is just not very good. But he actually has some charm and fun in this movie. He's still probably the weakest element of it, but I do think he is very fun in the role he has, and he does help the kids out near the climax. And, I like a lot of that stuff. One of the biggest negatives, though, Stein feels completely tacked on here. It's because I don't really think he was going to be in the movie originally, and they threw him in just for brand recognition because people were getting mad because they hadn't seen anything of Stein. Because, again, he feels like such an afterthought in this movie. You see him hinted a little bit earlier on, and then he comes on at the end for like 10 minutes of screen time, if that, and he barely does anything. So, I don't know. And then there's the stinger ending where Slappy sucks him into the book, obviously for sequel bait that we're probably never going to see come to fruition. And like, it just feels like he wasn't needed at all. And I know it's because he had scheduling conflicts because he was working on House with the Clock in his walls at the time. So there's that. But I just feel like he wasn't needed in this movie. It's very much a throwaway character. And it wasn't needed. I like Sarah a lot. I like her story arc. But yeah, overall, I just really enjoyed this movie way more than I did back in the day. I would give it probably a 9 out of 10 overall. I think it's a phenomenal kids horror Halloween Goosebumps story. So.
Yeah, man. I'm glad that you were able to find more appreciation of it this time around, because I do feel like the older you are and the more you get engrossed with like the books, I do see a lot of older folks who read the material, get themselves into it, the thick of it, and then they watch the movie, they really appreciate it more than you would think, which is incredible, and I'm glad it worked for you too. So yeah, great points. You want to add anything on to that, BD? Share your thoughts about the movie?
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much covered some similar thoughts I had. I'd probably give it like a 8.8 out of 10. Very good. I mean, characters are better than the first movie. First movie just had a bunch of cardboard cutout characters. Here you actually got personality. They feel more like Goosebumps protagonists. Sam and Sunny also feel like genuine friends. Their actors did a good job making them feel genuine. The sister character and the brother have a nice arc where the sister feels like she's been selfish and she feels like she's supposed to be the protector figure of the family because the mother's always busy, and then the brother's like, no, you've been doing a good job, you've been proving yourself. Actually, that happens more in the novelization, but in the movie it's still there and present. Yeah, the whole idea of Slappy, this is like one of the best portrayals of Slappy, because you don't get a angle of Slappy where you actually see his childlike side. Like, when you look at Bride, it's still very kind of adultish. When you look at him normally, he's always kind of, even though he's slapstick, you see him as more mature than the actual kids. He's a, mastermind and all this stuff. Here you see that childlike vulnerability in him, where he's like, I want a family. Stein kind of abandoned me. He's focusing on like, hey, if I have this family, it's not just a slave thing. I can protect them, because he actually protects his family members in this one. You see him get revenge on the boyfriend, which I love the like Michael Myers type of teleporting stuff that he's got going on. Just makes him creepy. The look that he gives the boyfriend when he falls is like sinister. Like you just see that he's very protective about his family. And the way that he messes with, Sonny's science project, it lets you know that he, in a way, in his own twisted way, cares, but he doesn't know how to show it. He only knows how to do his evil deeds to make people on his side. which almost gives you like Slappy's Nightmare vibes, where like he's trying to do something good, but he doesn't know how to do it. It's like this very foreign thing to him. So all that stuff is good in the movie. The monsters. Are they, anywhere near as recognizable as like the novelty in the first movie? No, but they're fun. It's like a Halloween Town homage. You just got all these decorations. It feels like, real Halloween vibe. You see flying jack o' lanterns. You see that scarecrow pumpkin head kind of thing. All of it's really fun. And yeah, overall, it's just a really good movie. And the idea that Slappy is using a Tesla tower to amplify his power. When do you get a villain doing that type of threat level? The only villain I've seen that type of threat level and like 40 chess is Carl Nav from Trilogy, where you very much know that he's trying to outplay the kids. Here, Slappy's like, okay, not only am I gonna make my own family, I'm gonna project my powers. Shout out to Nikola Tesla. I'm gonna use his idea for my own benefit, and he's gonna take over New York. And he almost gets away with it if it wasn't for those meddling kids. So yeah, very good movie.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with basically everything y'all said. I'm basically right around the money. I'd probably give this maybe like a 9.2 out of 10. And this is a movie that I think every time I rewatch it, it just gets better and better for me. And it's not like a thing where, like I'll watch something and then like this is like a whole different take on it. No, I mean like I like it a little more each and every time. But this time around, I just think that this movie does one thing incredibly well that so many other kids horror movies that have come out in like the past 10 years can't do. And that is it captures the essence of the childlike wonder of kids horror. And the childlike wonder, what makes it so poignant, especially in Goosebumps, is the essence of the Goosebumps stories themselves. Say what you will about Tim Jacobus's art, say what you will about the cover design, say what you will about the 90s show. What makes Goosebumps Goosebumps to me, and I think for a majority of fans out there, is how the stories resonated with them, how it scared them, how it captured their imagination, how it made them wonder, how it reminded them of why they wanted to try these books out. This movie makes me remember my childhood and my fascination with Goosebumps, and it makes me connect with my inner kid. No other kids' horror movie that I've seen in the past 10 years can make me do that. This movie does. And I think it's special for that. This really does feel like a cinematic experience with Slappy. Say what you will about Slappy, whether you have fatigue with him, whether you're tired of seeing his face, you don't want any more things involving him. I kind of get you. But this movie, if this was the last time that we ever saw Slappy in anything, I think this would have been a perfect send off for him. You have a story literally about an unmade Goosebumps book, unreleased, called Slappy Halloween. He's the starring character. This is his prototype version of himself. You get a whole different take on Slappy's character that you really only ever see in this movie, even though it's kind of like a hybrid of the first three true Slappy books. You see a lot of Dummy 2. You see a lot of Dummy Three's episode and Bride story kind of in a blender here, but it works well. Slappy has powers on display that you see in modern Slappy, but he's playing 4D chess and not checkers with these kids. Most of the time he's very cut and dry, black and white what he's doing. Slappy, he's thinking 2 steps ahead of these kids. He is methodically doing things for his strategic benefit, and he's doing these in a way to where he thinks he can win, and he almost does win. He just gets outsmarted by our 17-year-old main protagonist. But that shouldn't be any surprise because it's a movie. What are you going to expect? Do you think they're all just going to lose? This is a Sony PG movie, y'all. If you're expecting that, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I really do think that this movie, it captures the Halloween ambiance very well. Yeah, the monsters aren't as iconic as the book monsters. They're just Halloween decorations come to life, but they're movie unique monsters. There's a reason to come to this movie for that if you're here for it. In my opinion, they missed out on a big opportunity by making this movie into Funko Pops, because I think they would have been a popular line if they did so. Same thing with 2015. I never understood why they didn't do that. But I would have killed to see Goosebumps 2 Funko Pops and seeing the witch and seeing the skeleton spiders with the skeleton heads and then the gummy bears or the balloon spider and its babies. That would have been fun, right? I think everybody would have been on board with that. Maybe even a Walter as an ogre Funko Pop uh, for people out there who like Walter. But yeah, this movie just has a lot of charm. I don't know really what else to add. My only negatives with the movie, I think Micah touched on it, with the CGI being hit or miss. That is the thing. And I will say, compared to something else we have yet to talk about, there's some things here that I feel like were nerfed, and you can kind of tell that they're trying to wear the kitty gloves with it when they could have pushed it a little further. And because of that, that does kind of hold it back. I do kind of see that, just judging on the film by itself. There's moments where they could have pushed it further, but they leaned into, hey, let's keep it PG. Let's not push it too far. It wasn't trying to push the boundary or move the line or move the goalpost over so that other movies that come after it can continue that progression, right? It played it safe a little bit, and that's just an overall thing I have with it. But
Also,
other than that,
I was gonna say it's also a little fast paced in some places. Like I noticed that
yeah,
on second watch. But I do gotta highlight that this movie probably has one of arguably the best slappy scenes in the Goosebumps IP in my opinion, which is the one where they get back to the house and he's in the mom's lap, and it is such an intense scene for Slappy because you very much have that idea that like one wrong move, one slip up that we say, he might just straight up just like do something to the mom. And he almost gives that impression too. Like you see the way that Slappy's like sitting there and eyeing them. It's almost like he's kind of telling you guys like, don't do anything, otherwise, I might snap. And it reminds me of the movie I saw recently, Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire, where, in that one, the mom is super close to the villain, and they're just like, we got to play it cool. We can't do anything rash because if we do, it might be a chance that we lose our mom or something bad happens. So that's like one of the more, I think, best Slappy scenes because he doesn't need to be flaunting his powers. He doesn't need to be throwing your mama jokes at you. He's just getting close to the people you love, and he's being like, I got that advantage over you.
yeah, and I totally agree with that comparison, because that alone builds in stakes with this movie. The stakes of this isn't that the town is being taken over, more so than they care more about their mom. They don't want their mom to be taken over, and they want to save her, and that just makes it more perilous and harrowing. Like it's hard to see kids being put in that scenario where they have to save their own parents. Maybe you see it in Jimmy Neutron's movie, or from time to time. But in this scenario, I think Slappy is a formidable threat. He's legit, like, if he gets his way, he's going to turn this entire town to his family. He's going to keep it Halloween forever, and these kids are going to lose their mom, and most likely they'll be acclimated too. And not to mention, I think that this movie does a phenomenal job at tying in things that we wish were in Slappy books that were only in the 90s episodes, specifically with Dummy 3. And that's the whole scene with the mom in the back half of the movie when she's being turned into a dummy. Everybody loves that from Dummy 3's episode, I feel. And seeing this come back, but in a fun way, where you have to kind of read the movie novel to understand the context. But Slappy does this, and I think the episode from the 90s show also touched on this, but they keep the lore in common here. If he says the spell that brings Slappy to life backwards and says the words backwards, that can turn humans into dummies, which is really fun. And I like that the writer here, Rob Lieber, did his homework and looked into previous Slappy stuff so he can be as accurate as possible when it came to like providing fan service. Even though that was an episode exclusive thing, it still tickles my heartstrings in knowing that he did that for fans. And I have to give my biggest appreciation to Rob Lieber for doing his homework in that. I watched the making of this movie and the behind the scenes, and the director specifically was talking, I guess, for the writer, and he was like, our first priority with this movie compared to the one before was that we wanted to go into this with the Goosebumps fans in mind, and we wanted to make something that resembles the books. and I think they hit it for what they were trying to do in a theatrical setting with Sony's big $1 million budgets, with their overhead and probably their vulture eyesight onto the project the entire time, wanting it to feel like a certain movie. They still were able to make something that resembled why we are all here. And that, like I said, just speaks volumes to me. So I have nothing else to say about the movie unless we want to move on to something else.
Well, one thing I do want to bring up as well that I like about the movie as well is with Slappy is like I like that they actually show him being mobile in this movie. Like even though there is some wonky CGI, the first movie he's just sitting around. He doesn't move. He just teleports everywhere. And when you do see him, he rarely ever stands. I think the only 2 shots we see of him standing are in the Funhouse when he releases the Blob, and when he's like walking up to Stein after he gets sucked into the Blob. Every time else, he's just sitting there doing something. And like it just feels like he barely feels like he's a living dummy. It's the same issue with the 2023 version of Slappy, where he barely walks. He just sits there and does stuff. So I really appreciate that this movie actually shows him standing up, walking around, doing things that Slappy would do in the books. I just think it's such, and even just the little detail of like in the beginning when Sonny first discovers he's alive, and you actually just see him like push himself up after getting knocked down. It's just those little things like that just make him feel so much more alive than he does in other adaptations. And ironically enough, it's always the adaptations that Rob Letterman is behind where he makes Slappy immobile.
By the way, him bringing the Street Fighter toys to life was great. That whole scene with the Street Fighter was fucking good. I love that.
Oh, yeah. Good point, Micah, because when you think of Slappy, you think about the tagline, he walks, he stalks. Literally, in this movie, he's stalking the older sister in her bed at night. That's creepy. This is like stuff that Book Slappy would do. Do you think Book Slappy would sit on the top of a car and burn books like the first movie? No. He wouldn't do that crap. I mean, he's up trying to cause mischief to whatever family has brought him to life. That's what this movie is. And it's to the core. To in spirit of that. I resonate with that more than what they were able to do with Slappy in the first one. That's just me, but I think all y'all agree too. Right?
Yeah, I even love the shot of him when like right before the scene where he's stalking Sarah, like where he pans over to him like asleep, and then suddenly he just like wakes up and his head like jolts to the side. Like that's such a creepy moment with him too, and like I don't know, like it's just they did a really good job making him really unsettling in that sequence, and it's really great. It's like it's probably the scariest moment Slappy has in both movies.
Well, like BD said, they're trying to show his childlike innocence, but they toed the line of him like being like a little child, but also being still creepy. Like they're walking that line the whole movie. Like he goes from this to creepy to childlike, and he's constantly going like this the whole movie, which is fun. I like the ebbs and flows with his character. It shows Slappy's cerebral personality, especially in that back half when he starts playing 4D chess with these kids. It's amazing. It's really great stuff. And I think people are underselling this by saying that this is a cheap cash grab from the first movie. I mean, like, I think BD said it perfectly. Aside from Slappy being the main villain focus, and aside from, monsters coming to life in the streets, that's where the similarities really die between these two movies. I mean, they're totally different plot structures, totally different narratives. And if you can't see that, I don't know what else to tell you. I really don't. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but you actually have to like pay attention and like watch the movies.
You also have kids that are trying to solve it and beat the villain, compared to in the first movie where they're just like, Stein Senpai, please help us every moment, Stein Senpai. Come on, help us out. Like here, Stein is not in the story. It's the kids having to figure it out, which guess what? That's what Goosebumps books are. A lot of the time, parents are not in the picture. A lot of the times, adults are not in the picture. The kids are the ones who have to figure it out, because that's why it's kids' horror. That's why kids read them. They want to be the focus.
Mm-hmm. They want to live in the fantasy. They want that I guess, kid or teenage fantasy element where they can live vicariously through characters that make them feel like themselves. And I feel like there's so much disconnect. I feel like it's so corporate feeling in that first movie. The characters feel cardboardy. They feel corporate. Here, they feel more genuine. They feel more like relatable. You can plug yourself in. You're like, yeah, they have some surface level qualities to them, but they definitely expand on them in the movie. It's not like they treat them like, oh, they're in the movie. Here we go. Nothing else. No, they build onto these characters. They all have distinct personalities. They have their own distinct arcs, and they're clearly noticeable. I mean, I just think that in almost every way, it's better than the first movie. Aside from the fan service, which we could have taken more of. They had the meta aspect of the Goosebumps monsters coming to life in the pharmacy. It couldn't have hurt maybe to show some underused monsters from the first movie that was in like the brief pile up of monsters. That would have been kind of cool instead of just seeing two of the front and center ones that were already in that movie. But I digress.
Yeah, that was one. Or yeah, the fact that we get a movie called Haunted Halloween and the haunted mask isn't a main focus.
We're going to talk about this movie novel here in the scene. Well, actually, it's a Walgreens in the movie novel. They explicitly say that it was the werewolf, the abominable snowman, and the haunted mask were brought to life in the novel here. But the movie, I think we only saw two of them. And I guess the haunted mask is Walter the ogre. I guess that's what it's supposed to be, but I don't know. I never saw that part of it. Like I don't get like how they got an ogre mask out of it. But then again, they did do that troll mask in the 2023 show, so who knows? By the way, what would you rather prefer, Walter or the troll mask, Isabella?
Walter.
Walter. Okay.
There's no questioning that.
No question. Okay. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and touch on the novel real quick because we already kind of brought it up. I guess I'll take this over. If you've seen this movie here, Goosebumps 2, and maybe you want to see how a book version of it would play out, because let's say, you watch the movie, you can kind of see that element, but you're like, this is still like Goosebumps 2015 for me, for my liking. Well, read this book, y'all. I'm telling you, this book is fantastic. It's basically this whole movie that we just talked about. I'm not going to run down the plot again, but it does have some differences in its book to make it worthwhile for the experience. First and foremost thing, and I think me and BD have read it. I don't think Micah has read it. We will attest to this. You're going to get that third person narrative. You're going to get multiple character shifts in the focus throughout the book, but you're going to get more of a monologue through reading with some characters, especially Sarah. I think you're going to really plug yourself into her character better. I think that's a great thing that this book offers. But you're going to notice some scenes that I think were in the original script that never made it to the shooting script. So, you have some scenes with like Sonny, for example, cutting out the power with his Tesla machine in the beginning of the book. That's not in the movie, right? Or you'll have a scene with like later on in the movie where the monsters start coming to life. There's a whole thing with gummy bears in this book, y'all, and blood that was not in the movie. That is incredible, and I cannot believe that they cut it out. I mean, I can understand why. If you're Sony and you're top-down exec and you look at the original script and you're like, yeah, I don't know about that. They'll probably put a big old fat red X over it. It's in this, at least, and it's incredible. I wish it was in the movie. There's a whole thing with baby spiders, with the giant balloon spider that was cut out of the movie that's pretty harrowing and horrific and what it does to some characters involved. I wish that was in the movie. There's even stuff near the back end of the film with Slappy, and how Slappy is defeated even is pretty hardcore. Like in how it's described. I wish that was in the movie. Just little things like that you don't think would matter, but it does matter when you're reading something like this, because it reminds you that, hey, they're taking the kitty gloves off here. They're allowing Slappy to be 4D threat, along with having some legitimate dark stuff happening to these people. And I think if they would have went that, they could have probably gone PG-13 with this original script if they wanted to. I would have welcomed that. I would have welcomed it. A PG-13 Goosebumps movie? Who would have thought? But hey, I think especially with today's audience and like I guess what today's audience wants from the general I guess consensus of kids horror, I think people have spoken that they want darker stuff. They want darker. Even though they know Goosebumps is more lighthearted, it's goofier, it's less than serious. But I think when it comes to like movies and I guess the mainstream like representation, they wanted that dark element there to provide some legitimacy for it, so it can fit in with other things that they're experiencing. I think this will do it for you if that's something that you want. I think this is a perfect Goosebumps book. Genuinely, I have no complaints. I love this thing. Might be actually one of my top 10 favorite Goosebumps books, shockingly enough. But it's just so cinematic and it's incredible. It captures what the movie's able to do, just does it a little bit better in the areas where I think it counts. Um, so yeah, I know BD just recently read this. BD, what's your thoughts on the novel? Because I want to hear your take.
Yeah, novel's fantastic. I gave the movie 8.8. I give the novel a 9.5. Fantastic. There's quite a bit of differences. It's basically similar to the movie, but there's a lot of add-ons. There's a lot more dialogue and characterization. Like Sam is funnier in the book than he is in the movie. He's got more jokes. I think when they do the Junk Bros thing and they're putting up the poster, he does like some marketing and promotion jokes with Sonny because he's like, I forgot exactly what he said, but he's basically like, oh yeah, in marketing, it doesn't matter what you say, it's just how you say it. 87% of studies from this person basically shows that, as long as you bull, and I'm gonna paraphrase, as long as you bullshit, it's gonna end up like working well for your campaign. And Sonny's like, is that true? He's like, nope, I made that up, but it sounded true, didn't it? So he's got funnier dialogue there. You see him making jokes with the sister, where I think the sister needs to like remember something or come up with a plan. He's like, you were just about to tell me how much you love me. You're gonna take me on a date. She's like, no, no, I wasn't gonna say that. So you got banter between them. Um, you have the sister confronting her boyfriend. That happens outside of Tommy's house when they're fighting the gummy bears. She basically tells him, like, in short form, like, I can do better than you. You don't deserve me. And she basically puts closure to the boyfriend line, which does not get closure in the movie. It just kind of, he gets wheeled away and you don't see him again. Also funny because since he's injured, she thinks that when he's limping over to her in his costume, that he's like a zombie that's come to life. So she gets ready to beat his ass with a fucking bat. And then right away he's like, no, 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 it's me, it's me. And then she stops and then she gives him, the whole lecture. Yeah, the balloon spider, you see the balloon spider attack the mom in the book, which you feel like is a cutout scene from the movie, because in the movie when they get to the house, she's already cocooned up. You don't see how she got there. In the book, you see how she got there. When the balloons pop, there's hordes of spiders that come attack the kids. And when the balloon spider leaves with the mom, it's described that all the spiders like get up and ride the back of the mom. It's freaky. The gummy bears using a sewing needle and stabbing Sonny's fingers to get the book back, and blood's being drawn, as Comp brought up. The mom plays a bigger role. She actually starts like doing some psychological games with Sonny and Sam, trying to distract them in the climax. And the Tesla Tower is a lot more glorious in the book, because instead of it just shooting out electricity, there is a fucking Avengers level beam of light that's shooting up in the sky. And Slappy doesn't just get electrocuted, he gets atomized. He gets vaporized, which is a worse fate than even like the Night of Living Dummy 3 episode where he got lightning bolts. So yeah, novel's great. Go check it out. Go read it. Probably missing some stuff, but you'll pick it up when you read it. I would suggest you watch the movie and then read the novelization, because I think you'll appreciate it more.
Yeah, I definitely I think we talked about it off camera, but I believe that this was like the original script that Rob Lieber had, and Arlstein edited this novel, so he probably just paraphrased it or made it to where it would fit a novel and just put it out the way it was. You can clearly tell, like if you watch the movie and you look at the deleted scenes and like what have you, they had a shooting script that cut out a lot of this great stuff that's in the novel. So you do yourself a favor, if you see the movie, go read the novel. I promise. I think a majority of people would like the novel more because it just does more. It has more of an emphasis and an oomph to it, and it makes it even better, in my opinion. Like, and almost every way. Even though the little things are little, they add up and add up and add up and just stick in your mind more.
I just
To the point
remember
where,
I was gonna say, I just remembered too that Micah highlighted the whole Slappy staring at the sister scene at night. In the book, also you see him behave more dummy-like because he actually in the book you see him actually walk over and get inside of her backpack and zip himself up. Like in the movie, it's just a cutaway. You see him, and then the next day she finds him in his backpack. But in the book, you actually see him like walking and stalking like a dummy over to the backpack and then getting himself in there, smiling, and then zipping it up, which is creepy if you saw that on screen. Just a dummy literally getting in your backpack. It's pretty good.
yeah, just reading the novel, I'm glad that this thing exists because we I think we get to see what they wanted to do, or at least the writer wanted to do, and I think the writer did a phenomenal job. Creating a story from scratch with Slappy must have been a daunting task, especially with the Sony overhead and overhanging over you and breathing down your neck. This was incredible, and despite all that, and if you don't know this about the second Goosebumps movie, it was in development hell. They had to rewrite the movie like 3 or 4 times, and this was after they scrapped Horrorland. They were like in like the third, fourth idea, and the fact that I think this guy made a phenomenal Slappy story. Yeah, it wasn't a Horrorland movie, y'all, but it was a great Slappy story. And while I want to say I'm the biggest card carrying Slappy fan member out there in the Goosebumps community, far from it, this has to be my favorite Slappy story ever put to page. I think it's so cinematic. I mean, until they make another Goosebumps movie with Slappy in the forefront, and they do something way wilder, way different, maybe make it PG-13 and go balls to the walls with it, I'll bite my tongue. I think this is the best Slappy story that we've gotten. Period.
There should be a 2015 movie novelization too, so I'm curious to read that as well if it's out there.
Yeah, I'm curious too. I want to see if there's any heat in that. Because
I've read it. I think there's a lot of differences from what I remember. I haven't read it in a long time, but I do remember there are some things that are different in the novelization.
yeah, I'm curious. But yeah, I think we're all pretty much on the same page with Goosebumps 2. Goosebumps 2, like movie or novel, you're gonna have a fun time, I feel. Especially if you're more open-minded. And like I said, if you have that experience with the franchise, you'll probably like this more. But that leads us to our face-off. Now, 2019, I think or 2018, Goosebumps 2 came out around that time. And then a few years later on Netflix, a random Netflix original Halloween movie popped up. And this movie stars Marlon Wayans from the Wayans brothers. You might recognize him from movies like White Chicks, movies like Scary Movie, Scary
Don't Be
Movie
a
2,
Menace.
Don't Be a Menace, various other things. I think A Haunted House, the parody movies. They came out with this movie called The Curse of Bridge Hollow. And I remember watching the trailer of this. I remember looking at like maybe just the poster. And I'm like, I can already tell they're ripping off Goosebumps here. But when I watched the movie when it came out back in 2022, I remember just kind of writing it off, being like, they pretty much just ripped off Goosebumps here. But over the years, nobody was talking about this. And I'm like, this movie, I think literally is taking the idea from Goosebumps 2 and they're trying to do their own spin on it. But it had some weird results, I would say. It's not widely talked about. It's not like a highly coveted Halloween classic, I don't think, out there in the ether. So it's an interesting comparison to see a Netflix original taking from Goosebumps and Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween, almost to plagiarizing levels in some regards, but we'll get to that. I'll pass this over to you, BD, because when I told you about this movie, you're like, okay, I want to watch it. And I think you had a funny reaction to it. Tell us about The Curse of Bridge Hollow, and what did you think about it?
So the movie is basically about this brand new family that's moving into a neighborhood. They're moving away from, I believe, they grew up in like a more downtown city area, more lower class. Now they're going to middle class. And this new town, they love Halloween. They love celebrating Halloween. The dad hates Halloween, so it's not a good move for him. But he's getting a new science teacher job at the local high school, so he decides to take it on. And the daughter's reluctant about it. And when they get there, obviously they're a little bit shocked to see that how much People love Halloween. You see all the festivities. You see that each house adopts a theme and they're supposed to go like balls to the wall with decorations. The neighbor is like, themed around like zombies and he does like a whole Walking Dead setup. And he's like, hey, I got werewolves in my shed if you want it. They got real wolf fur. So, real Halloween heads. Um, and then as the story goes on, they meet the mayor and they find out that there's going to be this kind of Halloween festival that happens, which the mom's going to sell some goods at. And the mayor, basically brings up the idea of a villain called, and I quote, Stingy Jack. Yeah, not Sawtooth Jack from Dark Harvest, no, Stingy Jack. Stingy Jack, apparently, is an entity which can infest Halloween and kind of bring it to life. That sounds similar to anything? Yeah, we know what that sounds similar to. So basically, they tell him the story about Stingy Jack, and when the main character meets some group of ragtag, similar age kids in a crypt of all places, because of course, in the cemetery, they basically tell him like, "Hey, we're into the paranormal, we're into Halloween, we're into supernatural," and she goes on a I'll get to this later. A Ouija board app from the App Store. Gets on there, starts experiencing some paranormal stuff in her house, and then she goes to the attic and finds this jack o' lantern, this kind of strange looking jack o' lantern. And when it's lit up, things go bad because lighting up that jack o' lantern means that now Stingy Jack has been released, and Stingy Jack starts bringing Halloween decorations to life. And now it's up to her father who hates Halloween, and eventually the ragtag team of kids to group up together and try to save the day. That's essentially the plot. I don't hate this movie, but I definitely don't like this movie. This is like a mad, like meh, okay movie. This one is so clearly, in a lot of places, just feels like a parody that it pisses me off. And after watching stuff like, Spirit Halloween and Ghost Squad, not as bad as those, but you can tell watching this movie, it's supposed to be like a Marlon Wayans family kind of movie. And they focus a lot on the Marlon Wayans, his focus, his comedy. But it's like, that's taking away from the plot. You can tell that they almost want to make him the focus of every scene rather than kind of dignifying roles and making it a cohesive story. Um, the decorations coming to life. They all look fucking cheap. Some of them look okay, like the clowns, but the stupid cardboard cat that comes, the, half torso zombie, all that stuff, it just looks goofy. The football skeletons are hilarious. They just look so damn goofy. There's also a big spider. Yeah, Goosebumps Haunted Halloween. There's a big spider as well. Not as big as the balloon spider or as good looking, but it's still a big spider. Um, Marlon Wayans, even though he does carry the performance, I think he's the best actor without a doubt. He's not as funny as Marlon Wayans usually is. He makes a joke when she's on the Ouija board app, like, you're using a Ouija board, those shits aren't real. And on top of that, you're using an app. What, does the ghost want the Wi-Fi password? Boo! I've seen Marlon Wayans be funny. Those are some bad lines that they're giving him. Some corny ass cornball lines. This movie has so many tropes. It has so many tropes. The mom's a vegan. Of course, the mom has to be a vegan. That just has to be a thing. She has to be that non-hip vegan type. Marlon Wayans, he hates Halloween. Is that like a new thing that just comes with family movies? Like anytime it's a holiday movie, they gotta hate Christmas, they gotta hate Halloween, they gotta hate whatever they're in because then it makes them feel like, oh my god, they don't want to be a part of the plot. That's always like the trope that comes in. The characters, the kid characters, they're all cardboard cutout. They don't have any personalities. The main actress, the main kid actress, she can't fucking act. Okay, I think Cop made a joke that she doesn't know how to act in Stranger Things either. She don't know how to act in here, bro. Her line delivery is like NPC type of stuff. Um, the idea of Stingy Jack as a villain is not bad. Again, it's ripping off Haunted Halloween. It's not a bad concept, but when you see Stingy Jack, like Jack in the flashback, he looks like a Sora AI villain. The way that his visual effects look with his glowing eyes, it looks like somebody made it on AI. I don't know if that was obviously, I guess, not the intention, but just looks that way. The monsters, while they are threatening at some points, like the clowns, like the spiders. They then get broken up with gags. So, like the big spider, right? The big spider comes to life that's in a retirement home. It starts attacking Marlon Wayans, and then he starts slipping and sliding through the hallway, like dancing with the spider. And it's like Tom and Jerry physics that are going on. It's like, what the fuck is this? And then the clowns. The clowns are intimidating, but then later in the movie, the clowns become mindless, just minions that are background noise. Because then the mayor gets a broom, and then the clown with the machete just starts touching tips with her. I know how that sounds, but it's what he's doing. He's not even trying to hurt the family anymore. He's just trying to distract now. It's just you can tell it's trying to be a parody in some parts. It's trying to be a generic family movie. Is it serviceable? Yeah, it's not like offensive or anything like that bad, but it's just not impressive. And the fact that they're trying to bank off Haunted Halloween success, which had bigger budget, bigger name, better everything in terms of characters, effects, premise, it's just like, why? Why do this? Why not go for something more original than 3 years later trying to build off that Halloween hype? I also think Spirit Halloween came out the same year. This was a rough year for kids horror. It was not a good year. 2022, not a good year for kids horror. So yeah, and then 1 year later, the Disney Plus show came out. So rough times, dark times, people. But yeah, Bridge Hollow, I give it like a 6 out of 10. It's okay. Honestly, I might even bump it down to like a 5.5 net, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I have to say, before I pass over to Micah, I rewatched this movie, I think for like the second or third time when you watched it the first time, and I was, with a more critic mind involved, and I have to pay attention to these things, and I'm trying to like, actually formulate thoughts instead of just like mindlessly watching it. I was like, okay, what the hell am I watching? About 5 minutes in, yeah, I have a lot to say, but I'm gonna pass over to Micah because I want to hear his thoughts first. Micah, this was your first time watching it, and you had to watch it in a weird way because you don't have Netflix, but you're able to watch it. What was your thoughts on the movie?
I enjoyed it for what it was. It wasn't great or anything like that. It wasn't awful. I think Haunted Halloween is easily the superior film still. But, for what this movie was trying to do, I think I had a fun time with it. There was a lot of, there were some cringy jokes. The side characters were very bland and forgettable. But I did honestly kind of like the bond the father and daughter had. The daughter isn't the best actor or anything like that, but I do think they had some fun back and forth sometimes. And I do like the arc that especially the dad goes on. I think it's a nice it's generic, but I think it works for the movie that it's in. I think there's a lot of very fun moments here with a lot of the decorations come to life. The zombie scene, I think, is kind of fun with them, like the daughter and the neighbor fighting the zombies. I thought that was a fun sequence. I love the sequence of the clowns in the Halloween maze where the kids are super on edge and like getting jump scared by the different scare actors while also being hunted by the actual monsters. I think my favorite sequence, though, is the one with the dad versus the skeleton football players. That scene was so fun.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm just going to add on to you. I agree. I forgot to mention that. Great scene.
I think that scene is probably the best scene in the movie, or the second best one would be the seance in the mausoleum. That actually made me laugh. That's one of the few times the movie got me to laugh.
Bro, the chainsaw scene just felt like fucking Ash versus the Evil Dead. I was like, I love that, bro. It's so fun.
Yeah, I think that scene was just very entertaining. I think that was easily some of the funniest acting the dad actor had aside from that seance scene. Him just like going full crazy with the chain, going full again like Ash Evil Dead on these skeletons and like using one of their arms, some of their dismembered arms as nunchucks in one of those scenes. It's just such goofy, campy fun, and I love that scene. And I think that there was the CGI was very hit or miss. I think there were some monsters that had some decent CGI effects and some that didn't look very good at all. Kind of similar to Goosebumps 2 there. But I think even more egregious when the CGI is bad since it is a lower budget. But yeah, I think there was some, even though it is very much ripping off Haunted Halloween, it does change a few small things here and there to at least somewhat differentiate it. I think, obviously going with the idea of Stingy Jack instead of, Slappy or whatever, same basic idea, but I don't know. I think at least it does something a little bit different with it. My main gripes include the fact that the climax feels very anticlimactic. I think that the whole, trying to chant the spell, and it ends way too quickly, and like the whole, oh, you have to believe in the spell to make it work is just so like cringy, corny, cliche Disney Channel shit, and it's just I don't know why it wasn't really needed in a horror movie like this. I know it's kind of geared towards families and kids, but like that's like the oldest cliche in the book. Like, do you really need to have that as part of the final thing? I know it plays into the dad's arc and all that, but like it just feels silly and not needed. The townspeople, when the monsters are ganging up on them, they're pretty much useless. The monsters don't even do anything. They just form a wall and just like stand there in front of the townspeople. They don't attack. They don't do anything. And I think that makes it so lame and just unimpressive in that way. And yeah, that's pretty much like those are pretty much my main gripes about it. I think the movie is fine. I gave it like a 7.5, 7 out of 10. It's nothing special, nothing awful, nothing great. Just kind of all right. I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah, I think I felt like the first time I watched it, I probably would have given this maybe like a 7. If I just didn't have much else to say, like it's fine. But really sitting down and paying attention to this movie, I don't know if people might disagree with when I say this, but I feel like the movie was bad. But not like the worst bad ever. It was like a bad plus, like pushing like meh, pushing meh. All right, but I think it was slightly bad. Um, I don't mind. I don't mind the whole trope of every horror movie these days, ever since Goosebumps 2015, is you have to have a family moving to a town around Halloween. Why is this a trope? Why specifically Halloween? Pumpkinhead recently did this with that movie. They're moving to a new town on Halloween. Why are they doing that? I mean, it's just like it just feels like you have to have these type of tropes so they're disconnected and they have an excuse to meet characters and have brand new interactions with no established relationships that you need to build on. It's just lazy writing. It feels like lazy tropes being thrown in there immediately. And even moving past that point, all the characters in this movie, they feel like they are handpicked out of family movies from the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and you have this sandwiching of cringe. Okay, the dad character is easily the best character in the movie. He has the most distinct arc, but he is the type of parent or the type of character that just refuses and absolutely refuses on copium level times 1,000 to see the supernatural as anything less than explainable by science, even when it's thrown into his face about a dozen times, and after he has a silly mop fight with a giant spider that's come to life, after he's cut a clown's arm off, and it shows that it's an animatronic that's alive. After all of this stuff, he refuses to believe that it's supernatural all the way to the very end, where he has to believe in that cliche way you said. It's just so corny. The daughter is brain rot in this movie. She's using an app, an iPad, to conjure a Ouija board and to communicate ghosts with a freaking iPad. How stupid is that? Come on. Come on. I get this is a modern kid. They don't play with physical things anymore. They use iPads. That's just stupid. That's not even clever. Who thought of that? You should be fired. That's dumb. It took me out of buying into the whole setup of the movie to begin with. And then when you get to the whole Stingy Jack stuff, look, the flashback was appreciated, even though Sora AI probably made that entire flashback sequence. The freaking jack o' lantern looks goofy as hell. I'm not gonna lie. It looks like a freaking coconut from Castaway that Tom Hanks literally carved out of a freaking shark tooth. What it's supposed to look like. It looks so cheap and so laughably bad. I don't even know what else to say. That's supposed to be your harbinger of doom. Is a coconut-sized jack o' lantern. What am I looking at? It looks like crap. I do like the essence transfer element that this movie has, where I guess the spirit of Stingy Jack moves and possesses all these items. But the one thing that this movie doesn't do, and this pisses me off, this really does piss me off, is that in the flashback we see Stingy Jack's, I guess true form, because in the flashback, back in the 20s, they didn't have animatronics, they didn't have these things to possess, so he was in his full form, and the legend says that when he's activated with the spell, he has to bring a living soul into this portal so he can go back, right? which brings me to another thing that this movie knocked off that really pisses me off, and I'll get into that shortly. You see his true form, but we never see him in this movie. Like, he's implied to be like the main pumpkin head thing at the end when he's trying to take the mom into the portal, but the sheer lack of the actual villain that's been pretty much teased in our face since the beginning is infuriating. You spend all this time, an hour and a half, and you don't get any payoff with that hardly. It sucks, quite frankly. Which brings me to the freaking the ripping off, or I guess the ribbing, the parodying of Goosebumps 2 here. I mean, obviously, animatronics, Halloween decor coming to life on Halloween. I mean, self-explanatory there. But even down to like the villain trying to take the mom. It feels like they literally lifted that from Goosebumps 2. They took the approach of 2015 even with trying to make Jack Black the focus of that movie, and they try to make the dad the focus here. So you have a lack of kid narrative. It feels like that's an evident problem here, like it was in that movie. And the humor, when it does work, it's funny. Like, we already brought up the seance. We haven't touched on the seance scene hardly, but the seance scene was funny. All right, when they bring back the ghost woman and she's possessing Marlon Wayans' character, that was funny. And the jokes that he had at the end was funny. Rob Riggle, the neighbor who likes to drink beer, sit on his lawn while trick-or-treaters come, that's fun. He's a fun character. He's hilarious. And then maybe some mild jokes to be had in, sprinkled throughout the movie, maybe with like some gag humor with the mayor, or like the priest character trying to come up and try one of the mom's vegan cupcakes, and he's like, this is hard, and she's like, well, do you like it? And he's like, I can't tell a lie. And he puts it back and walks away ashamed. I thought that was funny. But easily the show stealing scene of this whole movie, if you had to watch one thing, is when they end up in a house, which, by the way, they have a principal character in this movie who's a Satanist. What? He's an open Satanist, open occultist. He's handing out toothpaste to kids. Come on now. Tell me how realistically was this guy's house not egged and TP'd to pieces by the time they got there? There's no kids would have put up with that. And his address is 666 Elm Street. Come on now. Quit playing. But yeah. I don't know what else to say. This movie's just goofy, pretty bad. I'll probably give it a 2.9 out of 5 stars.
I got two things that I just need to say. Yeah, I was waiting for you to bring that up because, bro, the fact that the movie is so corny, so cheesy, so PBS Kids, and the dude is just a practicing Satanist with pentagrams and three-eyed goat heads all over his house. I was like, what is this tone change? Like, it was the most like demonic ass house that just pops up in this corny movie. And second thing, and this was such all the scenes involving this are bad. One of the main villains that gets multiple showdown scenes is a fucking bat. A fucking bat. Not Dracula, not vampire, not hundreds of bats. One single plastic toy bat not only gets an opening sequence, but gets a showdown at the end with the little girl. Some things in this movie are just straight brain rot. Like, there's just certain things in the movie that's just like, just stop.
Even the sound effects they use, and I pointed this out. If you've ever seen Ultimate Goosebumps with the bats,
Check Michael's name.
It is literally the same Ultimate Goosebumps sound effect they use for bats in this movie. The same thing. And that took me back. I'm like, really? Are they really going that deep cut with the parody here? Like, is it that obvious they're pulling from Goosebumps here? But yeah, and with the pumpkin-headed monster, I even thought the design of that they were trying to rib on, Goosebumps 2's design of the pumpkin. It looked very similar there too. There's so many similarities you can.
And the characters you get introduced to in the beginning looks like Emily Osment from Don't Think About It at Home, and then the boyfriend from Goosebumps 2 looked like a younger version with that one boy kid. So it's just like, bro, these kids, man, that like even some of the kids are just parodies. You gotta have that goth kid. You gotta have that girl who's got blue in her hair. She ends up being Gwen Stacy. It's just like there's some things, man. It's just like you're just going a little bit too much with it. Like just tone it back. You don't need to be too much in your face. And Ouija board app people. The fact that it worked, I think that's what pissed me off. Not the fact that it was a Ouija board app. It's the fact that it worked. How did it work? Yeah, some parts of this movie is just turn off your that Micah had the right idea where it's like turn off your brain, just have fun. Me and Comp, we can't turn off our brains. We just gotta see these things as they are, unfortunately, and it's a curse. It's a blessing and it's a curse. We're cursed every time we see these movies. We cannot just have fun with them.
Yeah, I'm the type where if I miss it the first time, that's one thing. But if I catch it a second time or a third time, I can never unsee it.
Oof, yeah.
I'll never forget it. So yeah, I guess when it comes to this movie, unless Micah wants to add anything else onto it.
Not really. I think you guys covered a lot of the same negatives I kind of have with the movie. Like, even I didn't really bring them up, but yeah, you guys, I agree with all the negatives you guys have about it. Again, I don't know. After hearing some of the negatives and thinking about it more, I probably would move it down to like a 6. But
I mean, that's fair.
One positive though.
We're all pretty much right on the money, like 3 out of 5, 6 out of 10s.
One positive though. Kelly Rowland is hot.
Yeah, the mom is hot. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. And she was also in Freddy vs. Jason, which starred a bunch of Goosebumps alum. So
wow. I didn't realize that was her.
And of course, Kelly Rowland, famous singer, she can sing her ass off, and she's hot. So there you go.
She definitely, when she was in the movie, she helped it make it feel less unbearable.
Visually appealing. She's more visually appealing than the monster designs, at least.
Yeah, and with all the countless slapstick humor that Marlon Wayans wanted to throw into the movie, I really do feel like to say what this movie was. If you don't want to call it quite a Goosebumps 2 knockoff, it literally was just a starring vehicle for Marlon Wayans.
Yes.
And that's basically it.
There's a Marlon Wayans sitcom that he did that was like a family sitcom, and it felt like similar vibes to that. Just felt like, hey, Marlon Wayans doing family stuff. Almost reminds me of like some of the old Ice Cube family movies. Like, wasn't there one called like Are We There Yet? Where it's just like they keep highlighting the fact that it's Ice Cube. Gotta keep highlighting it's him in the family movie because it's so out of place. So this is one of those things.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be a night and day slaying for one here. One has to be sacrificed at the altar, as the Satanist from Curse of Bridge Hollow would do. If we had to pick a winner, I think we don't even need to chime in. I think we as a group would probably tell you either Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween, the movie or the novel, beats Curse of Bridge Hollow to a pulp. It's not even close. Not even close. And the sad thing is, I think Curse of Bridge Hollow had potential there. Who knows? Maybe Stingy Jack could have been a goated family horror movie villain. We just didn't see him in the movie. Who knows? Maybe this transference of essence could have been done in a more impactful way. And as Michael put it, if these characters weren't building a wall just to simply stop the town from going back to the house where the portal's at, and maybe they were doing something else, there could have been something there. Or maybe if the movie had more of a focal point in the kids of the film and drove the narrative that way, and maybe like a blended when good ghouls go bad approach. We've covered that movie in the past where Christopher Lloyd stole the show there. Instead of doing that, maybe they could have just had Marlon in the movie but made it more kids horror traditionally, and maybe fleshed out these kid characters and gone less tropey, less rip-offy, a little more original. This could have possibly been something, but it just wasn't. It just ended up being kind of bleh. Like it felt corporate. This is one of those corporate feeling comedy movies. It's not unorthodox. It doesn't stand out for being just outright ridiculous. It feels too tame to be like a serious movie to like take serious. It feels too cut and dry cookie cutter for a comedy movie to really stand out in your memory. And as far as Halloween movies go, the things that compare to it most of the time are probably better, especially if they have bigger budgets or they came out in theaters. You could probably go watch Casper, Hocus Pocus, any of the Goosebumps movies over this any day and be fine. You probably want to bat an eye or miss out on anything. So yeah, Goosebumps 2 clearly beats this thing. But I don't want to discourage Netflix from trying to make horror movies because there are we got Tubi now making R.L. Stein movies. We got you know Try Muse Entertainment, I guess, making R.L. Stein movies too. Kids horror movies, I guess, are on the up and coming. Netflix, I know you got Fear Street. You need to fix Fear Street after this doozy you just had, but keep at it and see what you got in the future. Um, I'm never going to count something out unless I just lose all hope. I don't quite have all hope lost with Netflix when it comes to kids horror or family movies in the horror genre because they just don't have enough in the repertoire. Maybe Hubie Halloween is the closest cousin to this. And if you've seen Hubie Halloween, I mean, it's a divisive movie, but talk about a turn your brain off movie. That is that. Uh, but yeah, nothing else to say there. I don't think we have a discussion planned other than, you know, maybe, Halloween this year was very interesting. I know BD watched a lot, and I mean a lot of family horror movies, kids horror movies this year, and read a good amount of horror novels. So he was pretty packed this year. Um, so kudos to you for having all that time and the energy to do so. And I know Micah was busy at school doing his thing, and it's the senior year, doing a Halloween event yesterday. So we're recording this the day after Halloween catch up. And then, I just got a promotion recently. So a lot of stuff happened this month, but we had a fun Halloween, I think, this year. We all got to experience some things that we've been wanting to experience and rewatch and everything. So, yeah, we hope that you all had a fun Halloween this year in 2025. Let us know down in the comment section. If you made it this far, how'd your Halloween go? What was your favorite thing you watched? Favorite thing you read? What was your favorite experience on Halloween night? We want to know that. If you're not subscribed or if you're not following either the Ultimate Goosebumps Man or the Horrorlander, their information is going to be in the comment section and the description of this video. Please go show them some support. Drop a like on their videos. Drop them a subscribe. And if you want to, on their videos, drop a comment to show how much you care. If you like this video, you can like it. You can subscribe to me if you aren't already subscribed here at Horror FFA. We talk all things horror, kids horror, whatever I feel like. This will be that kind of general hub for you. That's something you're interested in. And check out all of our other Goosejunkies podcast episodes in our playlist down below. This is our 39th official episode. Well, actually, technically 40th because we did an episode that wasn't a face-off at one point. So this is technically our 40th episode. But for our episode 40, for next time, Micah decided to pick the face-off. And I think it's going to be a good one because it's kind of a relatively known Goosebumps story at this point. But we're facing it off against a very obscure story, which is going to be very interesting. So we're going to be looking at a classic original 62 book, Piano Lessons Can Be Murder, which had a 90s episode adaptation in the 90s show. And we're going to be facing it off against a Neil Shusterman short story classic from his collection Darkness Creeping, known as An Ear for Music. So piano themed horror. Ooh, spooky, right? That's going to be our next face off. Till next time, we hope you have a scary time and have a good one. And please, 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 please let us know down in the comment section how bad Curse of Bridge Hollow was for you. Take care.